When empires rose and fell, when droughts scorched the land, and when armies marched through fields leaving ruin behind, there was one crop that quietly endured. It didn't just survive in poor soils, it improved them. Generations of farmers, from the earliest civilizations to the villages of the 19th century, relied on it to feed families, animals, and even armies. While most crops strip nutrients from the soil and leave the land weaker, this one did the opposite. It added fertility, season after season, and could thrive where wheat, barley or maize would fail. The astonishing part is that many modern farmers have forgotten it, even though it was once considered a cornerstone of sustainable agriculture. For 4,000 years, this humble plant left the ground richer than it found it. That crop was the fava bean. Fava beans, also known as broad beans, were domesticated in the Mediterranean thousands of years ago. Archaeologists have found evidence of their cultivation as far back as 2000 BCE in sites stretching from ancient Egypt to the Fertile Crescent. For Egyptians, fava beans were more than food. They were ritual offerings to the gods and a dependable staple in lean years. In Rome, broad beans became part of the soldier's ration, carried into campaigns where supply lines were uncertain. Greek farmers planted them as insurance against famine, and their ability to grow in poor soils made them indispensable for hillside farms and marginal land. Unlike cereals such as wheat or barley, which demanded fertile ground and irrigation, fava beans could take root in depleted fields. They tolerated colder climates, thin soils and inconsistent rainfall, yet still produced abundant protein-rich food. More importantly, farmers soon noticed that land where fava beans had been planted grew better crops the next year. This was no accident of chance, but the crop's secret gift to the soil. The reason fava beans enrich the ground lies in their unique biology. Like other legumes, fava beans have a symbiotic relationship with bacteria that live in nodules on their roots. These bacteria take nitrogen from the air and convert it into forms the plant can use. Instead of relying solely on nutrients from the soil, the fava bean essentially created its own fertilizer. When the crop was harvested, the remaining roots, stems and leaves decomposed, releasing much of that nitrogen back into the earth. That meant the following crop, whether it was wheat, barley or vegetables, grew more vigorously. Farmers may not have understood the microbiology, but centuries of observation proved the effect. Ancient Roman agronomists like Columella advised alternating cereals with beans to keep fields fertile. Medieval peasants across Europe followed the same wisdom, planting broad beans in rotation to revive tired land. In short, the fava bean was not just a food source, but a soil builder. Every harvest left behind the invisible wealth of nitrogen, improving the ground instead of depleting it. For much of history, fava beans were considered a poor man's food. They grew where little else would, they filled stomachs during famine, and they cost little to produce. In Europe, they were a staple long before potatoes and maize arrived from the Americas. Peasant families boiled them into stews, dried them for winter storage, and ground them into flour. In the Middle Ages, fava beans became essential during Lent, when meat was forbidden. Monasteries relied on them to provide protein for monks, and entire communities survived lean seasons thanks to their resilience. In England, France and Italy, fields of broad beans dotted the countryside, not only feeding people, but ensuring that the soil remained strong enough for the next year's wheat. Even in North Africa and the Middle East, fava beans became the backbone of diets. Dishes like Egyptian full mesdames, still eaten today, trace their roots back to ancient reliance on this crop. Its versatility in cooking matched its resilience in the field, making it a true survival food through centuries of hardship. You know, wars have often strained food supplies, and well, history shows that fava beans played a role in keeping populations alive. During the Crusades, armies crossing the Mediterranean relied on fava beans as part of their stores. In the Napoleonic era, broad beans remained an essential ration, easily dried and transported. Even during World War II, when shortages struck Europe, fava beans again became part of the diet. For civilians, they were planted in home gardens and allotments, especially in Britain under the Dig for Victory campaign. Their ability to fix nitrogen meant they improved small garden plots while feeding families with vital protein. Soldiers may have longed for bread and meat, but the fava bean quietly ensured survival behind the scenes. The modern era, with its synthetic fertilizers and industrial farming, has pushed fava beans aside in many regions. Yet the ancient wisdom still holds. Few crops offer the same combination of resilience, nutrition and soil enrichment. By growing fava beans, farmers could restore nitrogen to the land without chemical inputs, reduce the need for artificial fertilizers and improve yields of the following crops. In recent years, interest in fava beans has revived, particularly among those practicing regenerative agriculture. Farmers struggling with depleted soils or looking to reduce fertilizer costs are rediscovering what Roman farmers knew 2 millennia ago. Planting fava beans is not just about the harvest, it's about investing in the soil for the future. Beyond the soil, fava beans provided vital nutrition through the centuries. Rich in protein, fibre, iron and B vitamins, they offered sustenance where meat was scarce. Their ability to be eaten fresh, dried or ground into flour gave families multiple ways to preserve and use them. A sack of dried beans could last through winter, ensuring that even during famine or siege, food remained available. For armies, this meant portable, long-lasting rations. For families, it meant security. The same qualities that made fava beans invaluable in antiquity still make them a powerful survival food today. In a world facing soil depletion, fertilizer shortages and unpredictable climates, the fava bean stands as a forgotten solution. It thrives in poor ground, improves fertility naturally, and provides one of the oldest, most reliable sources of plant-based protein. Communities across history depended on it not because it was fashionable, but because it worked. For gardeners and small farmers today, planting fava beans is a way to reconnect with practices that sustain civilizations. Whether used as a cover crop to enrich soil, harvested for food or dried for storage, they represent a piece of history that still holds practical value. The fact that this crop has been grown for over 4,000 years is not just trivia. It is proof of its unmatched resilience. The story of the fava bean is the story of survival. It grew where soils were thin, where empires faltered, and where families faced hunger. Unlike most crops, it gave back more than it took, enriching the earth with each season. For over 4,000 years, it stood as a safeguard against famine, a soldier's ration, a peasant's meal, and a farmer's ally. In our own uncertain times, when soil health and food security once again weigh heavily on the world, remembering this ancient ally is more important than ever. The lessons it offers are timeless. Resilience, renewal, and the wisdom of working with nature instead of against it. If you want more history brought to life and more forgotten survival lessons uncovered from the past, make sure to subscribe to Backyard Wisdom and share this video with others who believe that the old ways still have something to teach us today. The fields of our ancestors hold the answers. We only need to look closely to see them.